Hello, everybody, and welcome along. I'm going to start that again because you glitched.
It's all right.
It's all right. Hello, everybody, and welcome along to episode 5 of season 3 of the A Game of Two Halves podcast. I'm your host, Sean Watson. Joining me once again on the line is Kieron Dobson. Kieron, welcome along. How are you?
Yeah, just a little behind the curtain for everyone. Just talking to Sean now before we started recording. Today was my first day back in work, so borderline depression. As I mentioned to Sean, literally about 2 hours into my shift, Rishi Sunak comes out with his Superman costume and announces he's going to extend furlough till March. So bit of a devastating blow for me, but with that said, it's the right thing to do. I'm just a little disappointed that I'm not. They've lost my vote anyway, Sean.
The Tories. After all that, after all this time, you're finally gonna desert them.
Yeah, this is the thing.
Are you deserting old Donald in the White House as well now? Are you
actually, yeah. No, can we just briefly say, obviously we're not recording from America.
No.
You know, in case it wasn't clear. But I had quite a lot riding on that mentally. If I'd have gone to work this week and Trump had been re-elected, that would have been pretty tough for me to take. I've liked Biden for a few years because of his affiliation with my party of choice in the UK. And it's just such a relief. I was telling you.
I mean, he's not there yet. We should probably say he's not there yet. But
he isn't. And yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that because I would have got carried away and then watched Trump win it. But it does.
I mean, by the time this comes out, he might be there. We don't know. But as of Thursday night, 9:15, he's not quite over the line yet. So.
But it looks bloody good for him. I think
it does look good. Yeah.
It's the lead. It looks like is going to just keep getting bigger as it gets over the line. So yeah, really happy with that. And it's genuinely. I was just going to say I actually watched the coverage on Tuesday night. And there was a moment where, because of the order that the votes coming out at, it did look like Trump was going to have a good chance of spoiling the party. But when Biden came out and sort of reassured everyone that they're on track to win, it was just such a good moment. And it was one time, because I've not drank properly now for about a month or two going on. I was then thinking I could drink now, but it's 4 a.m. So where am I going to go? So.
Yeah, and you missed last night's podcast to stay up for the US election, didn't you? So dedication to the election cause.
Some things are more important than this podcast, Sean.
Shows where your loyalties lie. But you're here now, and thanks for coming along. We're going to discuss the Premier League race this week and how it's sort of taking shape in its early stages. We discussed off air that it is still a little bit up in the air and it's not quite fully formed yet in terms of who the real contenders are. But that's our job tonight, is to try and unpick that and see who we think the real contenders for the Premier League are going to be this season, and maybe pick a top 4 at the end of it. Who knows? So let's get the ball rolling. Liverpool are top of the table. No change from last season, but it's not been as straightforward a path as it has been the past 2 years. They've stuttered and stumbled a little bit, most notably with the 7-2 thrashing at Villa. They've had a couple of close shaves at home where they've relied on late goals to get over the line. I think Sheffield United and West Ham on Saturday. How do you see? We talked a little bit Liverpool last season, but I think I'm probably speaking for you that it's not going to be a straightforward run to the line for them this year as it was last year.
Yeah, I know. We talked about them last week. The reality for me is that they're not going to win, and I know that I probably sound
right. You're calling it now.
Yeah.
Projected.
Yeah, the KJD is calling the title race now, and no. The thing is with it.
Stop the count. Stop the count now.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, no, not now. That's what Liverpool fans are saying.
Oh yeah, that's true. We don't want that.
Jurgen Trump or whatever. I don't know. But the thing for me, the problems with the defence. Van Dijk out for what looks like the rest of the season. We were talking about Fabinho last week, whether he was, potentially be able to fill the gap. Then he's been injured. It looks like he's going to be coming back a bit sooner. But and they've now played two. Is it Nat Phillips and Reece Williams, the two centre backs that have come in?
Yeah.
Have both played well, but I over the course of the season, I mean, they got City on the weekend, I think, and I actually think Liverpool might win that. So I don't want people to be like
It's going to be a
throwing
false dawn, is it?
telling that I was an idiot to write them off, but I just think over the course of the season, these injuries will hurt them, and they've responded excellently, like champions, fair play. But it's a long. This is going to be a particularly long season, and I just don't think they've got enough in the tank. Calling it
there. So if Liverpool aren't to win it, who do you think their main contenders are? You said City last week.
Stand by.
There's the sort of, yeah, I think they're 11th at the moment, but obviously it's still the early stages. Do you see anybody else running a real challenge? Spurs, maybe Leicester?
No. Do you see it the same way? The top two?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see beyond City. It always is in my mind. City and Liverpool will probably be 1 and 2, but I feel like Tottenham might be the closest challengers to the top 2 this season. I don't think United are in with a chance the way they've started. I think they're too far behind the 8 ball already, and we're only 6 games in for United. So I think we're going to count them out of it. But the way Spurs have started, I think they look like they're starting to become a team. Bale's a good addition. Reguilon, I think that's how you pronounce it, Reguilon at left back. I know he's in and out of the team at the minute, but he looks like a solid buy. And Kane and Son, Harry Kane in particular, looks back to his best. Incidentally, just before we came on air for the podcast tonight, he scored his 200th goal for Spurs in just 300 games. Yeah, so that's, 0.67, 2 in 3 goal record game. Game record goal. Goal record game. Goal game record. Something like that. Anyway, that's his ratio. It's damn good, is the point. Mm-hmm. And I just see them really starting to morph into a team. But the question does still hang over Mourinho, doesn't it? And has he got enough to sort of drag a team up to the top level again?
Yeah, I mean, for me, that I said at the start of the year that I expect them to do pretty well this year. They've got a good team now. That they've actually invested pretty well this summer, I'd say as well. I don't think Doherty or Højbjerg are excellent players, but they're good players that will come in and give them important minutes. And Højbjerg they particularly needed for the midfield just because it was thin. Ndombele's looked better. Obviously, as you say, Kane's looked excellent. Son, I think, is top scorer in the league. He's looked excellent too. Yeah. And then you got Bale coming in there, and they'll eventually have Bergwijn back, and maybe he'll. But as much as I think they will have a good season, I think they're definitely in with the top 4 shout. I still maybe I'm choosing to believe it, but I do think that there's a chance that we'll look back at the end of the year and go, actually, those the heavy the amount of the schedule, the amount of games they had in the early stage of the season actually helped them in the short term because it helped them with their sharpness.
They've had a bit of a leg up, haven't they, on Liverpool, not Liverpool, maybe City, United, and the teams that played in Europe at the end of last season.
I think, again, the teams that have had less of a chance to have a normal pre-season, the ones that are really struggling. Again, broken record on this, but the pre-season, it matters. It's where you get your fitness, and it's where the manager tries things. If it wasn't important, nobody would do it. They'd just.
I think it matters more than I've ever realised. Actually, I think I'm seeing that this year. I think I've sort of taken it for granted, and it's just a few nice money spinning friendlies over in LA or wherever.
That's the thing, though. They did them before they did tours. They've always done pre-seasons, and it's because it's all about the fitness. I always remember the year Berbatov got. Did he get Golden Boot that year, or did he share it or something?
2010-11.
His best year at Manchester United, anyway.
I think that's the lowest ever Golden Boot tally, 19, I think, if I remember right.
And he scored most of them in the opening couple of months, and he always said he worked. He upped his regime in the preseason, started it early. Yeah. And that was his benefit. And then as the rest of the teams caught up, he lost his edge. And so I do think there'll be an element of that with Spurs. So we'll see, but I might be wrong. It would suit my agenda if Mourinho's Spurs start to crumble and United resurge at the end of the year. But I do think there will be a bit of that. How much, I don't know, but I have to tell myself that it will.
I hope Spurs stick around. Contrary to your sort of aspirations, I do hope they stick around because I am tired of the City and Liverpool show as a United fan. It's arduous to see from a United point of view, your two biggest rivals running away with all the domestic cups and going deep in Europe every season. So I think if we're not going to challenge for it, I'd like to see somebody like Spurs take the mantle a little bit and take the fight to them.
Relatively inoffensive.
Yeah. Even Chelsea, I don't even hate Chelsea anymore. So Leicester would obviously be the dream again, but so let's talk Leicester then. They took Leeds apart on Monday. Well, it seemingly looked like it on the scoreline, a little bit closer in reality, but they've had a good start as well. I think they're second in the table on 15 points. Is that sustainable? Have they just had a good start to the year, or do you see them actually mounting at least a top 4 challenge this year?
I think they are top 7, certainly a top 8 team in the Premier League, and they've got a chance of finishing the top 4 just because, I mean, they were close last year, and who knows whether they'd have got there if they had their...
They should have done. They should have done, shouldn't they?
Yeah, but the injuries really hurt them. Obviously, Chilwell and Pereira going out for those last 8 games really did kill them off. There was another injury as well. Maddison struggled as well at the end of the year. They were 3 of their best players, so they were bound to struggle, and maybe if even one of them had stayed fit, they'd have actually snuck a top 4 place. But so they're going to be in the mix, and they've improved this year. The centre back Fofana, is it?
Yeah, the 19-year-old.
He looks pretty tidy as a sign. He settled pretty quickly, and then Cengiz Under, who's come in, I think from Roma. I might be wrong, but Turkish winger.
Yeah,
looks like he's got a real chemistry with Vardy already. So
they players like Harvey Barnes as well. That he's sort of stepping it up a level a little bit as well. And the right back the left back James Justin. They've got the new lad Castagna coming in at right back. I think does Brendan Rodgers deserve more credit than he gets?
I knew this is the route you're going to go down because you've hinted at it in the past. He does. He just doesn't deserve too much. And that sounds ridiculous because who deserves too much credit? But as good as he is, I do think that it's fair to be sceptical about him managing one of the big clubs.
Like Liverpool.
Quotations of him doing like that. He did a good job at Liverpool, and in that year where Suarez and Sturridge clicked, they were excellent. But I wouldn't want to roll the dice on him.
Okay, so counterpart of Brendan Rodgers, somebody spoke to Rodgers on Monday Night Football, and it was Maurizio Pochettino. Is it possible to talk Pochettino's Monday Night Football appearance without discussing United and Solskjaer?
We can do it, yeah. His hair, let's start there.
Start with his hair. He needs a good cut, in my opinion.
Join the club. I'm trying to cram one in before lockdown here, so waiting for a text back from my barber. So
you do know it's lockdown started today.
The days are all rolling into one for me. If my hair is shorter on next week's podcast, I did it myself. I didn't meet my barber on the slide, so we'll see. But Poch, his hair was. I thought it was luscious. I thought it was a bit of a disappointment him being on MNF the other night. I was really looking forward to it. I actually missed the first half, but spoke to yourself and a couple of us who were telling me that it was good, but I heard it was underwhelming. And then they
didn't do enough tactically for me. I wanted to see his tactical side. It was basically about his managerial career, and I wanted to see him dissect a few games. Really, that's what I would have wanted to see as a viewer.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what they usually do when they get them in. You know, even if they don't talk about the game that's on that night or the big game on the weekend. I remember when Klopp went on, I think they went back through some of his games as first year with Liverpool.
Yeah.
And I know that they, the first half, which I did miss, they did talk about that Southampton team.
They did, yeah.
But with that said, again, like you, I want to see him talking about, the nuts and bolts of it. A little bit behind the curtain, that sort of insight. And I think the language barrier got in the way a little bit.
I did say that, yeah. I mean,
I don't think he's fluent in English. Let's put it that way. I think he's got basically he speaks English better than I can speak any other second language. So I don't want to sound critical, but no. I think it hurt the broadcasting a little bit, because I think there were a couple of times David Jones asked questions and he misunderstood. And
yeah, that's part of the course. I think when you get somebody like Pochettino on, as long as you can understand the core message, sort of the frills around the outside don't matter too much. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. I've seen better. We'll get to probably Pochettino and where he factors into the United equation in the second half. But I did enjoy him on there. He did have some good stuff to say. And I think we've said it in the past that Monday Night Football is sort of the best in-depth football program that's broadcast at the minute. Obviously, other than a game of two halves. Second place in those rankings. But in terms of in-depth football chat and analysis and tactical conversations, I think we both agree that it is the number one.
Yeah, they've nailed the entertainment aspect of it. They talk about the big things. Whether you agree with what Carragher or Neville say, they always have something relatively interesting to say, and they're not always on the same shouting the same thing, which often happens with pundits. But they articulate it well, and again, it's where really they take a deeper dive into games. They look at the data and statistics, and they dissect individual moves. But so I was disappointed with that aspect. But yeah, with Poch, I mean, we were talking about Brendan Rodgers, and we came on to Poch. That, I think, that's my feeling about Rodgers. Is, like I say, I wouldn't want to roll the dice with him. And to an extent, you could argue that you're rolling the dice still on Poch. The Southampton job was excellent, as was, you did you got 9 out of 10 at Spurs. But I mean, he's still not won anything. I love him. I'm obsessed with him. I think he's an excellent coach. But the difference between Rodgers and him, like, you wouldn't, as long as Poch is on the market, you're not looking at Brendan Rodgers.
No.
With that said, I think Rodgers has found the right club for him, and I think if the Leicester board is smart and they stick with him and don't get too ahead of themselves, if he comes close one year and it fritters away again, they'll be a relatively successful team for a few years. He's obviously a good coach. He drills the team well. He's not got a bad eye for a player. And I just think, as it goes, he's probably one of the best British coaches.
Yeah, I think the real acid test for Rodgers at Leicester will come when he has to replace Jamie Vardy, whether that's the end of this season or next. I mean, he's not showing too many signs of slowing down, Vardy, but he is 33 now. So how much longer he is going to last, I don't know. And maybe replacing him with somebody equally as good, with a Premier League pedigree is going to be a tough task. So maybe that'll be the acid test for Rodgers.
You're right. I don't want to sound too critical, but as good as Leicester are, they are quite one-dimensional, and it's because of they really do. Whenever they've done well in the league, they've played to Vardy's strengths. Whenever they've not, or whenever they're disappointed, they've sort of tried to move away from hitting teams on the break after being well organised, pretty direct attack, not long balls, but they're not wasting time with the forwards. And Vardy's always on the shoulder, and he's excellent at it, and they'd be stupid not to play into his hands. But again, we saw with Rodgers when Suarez left, they struggled, and you would. He was the best player in the league at the time. Yeah. I mean, he still had a decent enough team that they shouldn't have gone from scoring. I think there was like a 30 to 40 goal drop off the year Suarez left, and it's not inconsiderate. It's a sizable amount of goals. Mm-hmm. And at Liverpool, he was an excellent defensive coach. I think that's fair to say. Leicester, I think have a better defence than the one he had at Liverpool, thinking back. But again, there's too many questions. In a word, I'm sceptical.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So if you don't see Liverpool winning it, is it a straight run to the line for City? Do you see anybody else challenge than maybe Chelsea?
It's a boring answer, but I do think City will win it this year. I don't think Liverpool are in the conversation. They started excellently at the top of the table.
I think you're writing them off a little bit soon, I've got to say.
Top of the table. They've responded excellent to it.
Reigning champions.
I think they might have won every game since Van Dijk went out.
Jota's looking like a proper signing, isn't he? All of a sudden.
Yeah, started excellently. Scored lots of goals early on. I just think there's going to be
Interesting start. Sorry, just to chip in. Jota scored as many goals for Liverpool in this calendar year as Roberto Firmino in 2020.
Yeah.
I think he's done it in 2 games or something. I think it's 4 Firmino scored from this year, and Jota scored the one on Saturday against West Ham to win it, and then obviously the hat-trick in midweek against Atalanta, I think. So, quick start for Jota. Sorry, just I cut you off there.
No, it's worth saying. He brings something different to Firmino. He works really hard off the ball, but I mean, he really does. He's closer to a Mane and a Salah than a Firmino in that he is sort of always trying to find the way in back behind the defence and looking to score pretty much all the time. Firmino is often looking to play in front of the defence and to bring other players into play.
Yeah.
I'm never going to say a bad word about Firmino. I think he's an excellent player. He could and should score more goals, but
it hasn't hurt Liverpool, has it?
No, he helps Liverpool. He doesn't need to score that many goals to help them, and he scores in some important games, so it's not like he can't do it. But yeah, Jota has been a really big signing for them. I've said before that they needed to sign a player ready for the occasion where Salah or Mane gets injured, if one of them leaves next summer, or if one of them goes over the hill next summer. Which all these things are, maybe I'm rooting for it and maybe I'm anticipating it before, I should. But these things, they need to be planning for these things. And signing Jota at 45 million, admittedly, at the time, a bit of an eyebrow raising price, but looks pretty shrewd right now. But the thing for me with Liverpool, they won a lot of games. I think it was 12 games by 1 goal last year.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen this year.
It might, but they need to score twice at least to do that.
I think, maybe their best route is to just go for it. A bit, not Bielsa-like, but to just think we're going to have to go and score 2-3 and settle. The difficulty is, though, as we saw with West Ham, what happens when the other team gets first goal. Liverpool won, they came through.
Just, though.
Yeah. And in football, it's a game of chances. And if the other team has a lot of chances, you can still have more and lose, but it's about building the gap. And Liverpool last couple of years have done that really well. It's not going to be so easy without Van Dijk, and they want Firmino back fit, ideally, not hobbling around watching his hamstring, which could well happen.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so last week we sort of. Do you want to add something else?
To Liverpool now.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about them right now.
So last week we sort of inadvertently started what we've sort of pounced on and looking to make into a new segment, haven't we? So I think for the first time it's time for Kieron's hot take. Kieron, what have you got for us? What's your hot take for this week?
This is an ill-prepared one. I'll be honest, I've said to you before, so don't be disappointed. It might be a lukewarm take more than a hot take, but...
Oven ready? Is it oven ready?
I'm not going to say that. Again, this week I've had enough of the Conservatives.
Haven't we all?
This week. They've been fine until now. No, my take, we're not going to have fans in Premier League in stadiums this season.
At all?
I don't think we are.
So interesting you said that, because just before we came on air, I sort of had a look at the golf in Houston, and they're trialling getting fans back in this week. I think they're letting 2,000 fans in per day on the golf course. So it is a hot take, I suppose, because it's topical right now. So you don't think Premier League grounds will get fans in at all in any form or shape?
I don't know. I don't.
Why is that? Obviously, we're now back in lockdown for at least another month, but I mean, beyond that, there's another 6 months of the season.
So my reasons, again, I'm not an expert. I don't have access to.
Bring in Professor Chris Whitty on the.
Yeah. My reasons being, they've extended the furlough to the end of March, which until, last week it looked like furlough had ended. That's going to go until March now. So I'm anticipating there'll be at least another 1 or 2, whether you want to call it a circuit break or a lockdown, whatever. I think there's going to be another one in the new year. There's no real signs that a vaccine's around the corner. The Premier League, I think, is going to have to finish on time this year because it's not like they can go into the summer like they did last year because they've got the Euros, which have been scheduled and that by the sounds of it, they want to stick to. So there's no sort of leeway there where they could maybe freeze and then, have football stretched into the summer in the Premier League and invite fans back into stadium then. Maybe it's a little bit safer to do so in the summer in open air. And previously, the United annual financial update, one of the things that I found out that came out of that was that they were told by the Premier League that they can't expect to see fans in stadiums till at the very earliest March. That was about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and the furlough scheme being extended till the end of March now tells me that, that things have maybe got a little bit worse as part of the plan. Otherwise, they've announced the furlough on Friday, just gone, or the week before, so that companies would have actually been able to plan. Maybe don't want to get too cynical about the government, but maybe that's part of their plan. Regardless, I can't see a scenario where they say, yeah, we're in the position to safely invite fans back to the stadium. How the logistics of it, would they have to be tested? Can you really properly, I know we've seen it around the world, but can we really invite fans back in and expect them to be able to social distance properly? Maybe they can. Maybe the answer is yes to that, actually, the more I think about it. I just don't see it happening. As much as the teams are going to want fans back for, ticket price, ticket income.
Yeah, it ain't for the fans, it's for the financial gain, of course.
Yeah, I think it's going to be kicked down the road. One other thing, sorry, just that I found out before we came onto the podcast, and after I came up with this take, I think they've announced, or they're going to announce, that they're going to scrap the pay-per-view games. That's going to be going back to having all 10 games screened. Now, you could interpret that and say, well, this is good for clubs who want fans back in the stadium, because now that they're not going to be able to monetize the Premier League by welcoming fans back and paying ticket prices, we have to make that money back now on the game. Otherwise, we're not going to get the pay-per-view money. But I look at it the other way. Have they maybe come to the conclusion that maybe they're not going to be close to bringing fans back? The price was palatable for a lot of fans, so why take it away from them? Just put it on the TV, and then slowly comes to the conclusion that it's going to be too soon.
Yeah, and that was going to be part of my I do agree with what you're saying. I think it is unlikely we'll see it before the end of the year. That was going to be part of my counter argument, that the fact that it looks like now, and it might well be at the time this podcast comes out, that they have scrapped the Premier League pay-per-view games, which for me is a good thing. But like you said, the clubs might seek to sort of reimburse themselves by looking to move to sort of opening the stadiums again and getting some ticket money in. My flip argument, and logic doesn't really pale into any sort of significance with this government, because we know logic's not at the forefront of their mind. But if 30 fans, or however many the numbers are, can go and sit in a cinema and watch a game, or they can go and sit in a bar attached to the ground and watch a game of football, where the stadium wall is separating them from the pitch, but they can watch it on a TV screen. I mean, this government doesn't operate in logic, as I've just said, so why can't they go through the wall and sit in the seats and pay 40 quid and sit in a stadium? It's open air. A cinema's obviously indoors. It's going to be, the risk is going to be significantly higher, you'd have to say. It can be managed properly. They can socially distance, especially in the all-seated stadiums. Looking at the golf before, the fans were sardine packed together. That won't happen in a Premier League ground, because you could quite easily space them out with the seats. So I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. But my sort of counter argument is, well, if they can do certain things that they are allowed to do now, why not Premier League football?
Yeah, I've said this before because obviously one that's widely talked about was that they had the show in the Royal Albert Hall, which is indoor, not open air, and we were saying, is it time to let fans in stadiums? I think again, this is probably the most political podcast we've done. I think that, as you say, it probably is the case that there won't be too much rhyme or reason to the decision to let fans back into stadiums or not to. I don't think the government will look at it from that perspective. I think what will maybe play on the minds, and maybe one of the reasons we haven't seen in the UK fans in stadiums, is because of the optics of it.
Yeah,
you've got people on camera, you're recording it, and you're allowing it. It's not on primetime TV. People stood in bars, people stood in concert halls or in cinemas. It's sort of under the radar, and I think, well, it's not under the radar, but it's not, it's not in people's faces.
Yeah.
Where if the virus, if the rate goes back up, the government, people will then say, well, you let fans back in stadiums.
They're making themselves an easy target, is what you're saying.
I don't want to get too cynical about this government again on a recording, because it might be upsetting some of our fans. I don't know, but I do think the optics are really what I think they play a
Pride
big
themselves
in their decisions. Yeah, and it doesn't really work, but I think that's how they think anyway. I might be wrong.
Time will tell. I hope you are wrong for the fans' sake, I suppose, and for everybody's sake, because I'm hoping the virus, and so are you. Hope the virus clears up sooner rather than later. But so that's your first, well, your second really, but your first official hot take of the podcast.
How hot was it?
Ambient. I think it can get a lot hotter.
Well, how could it have got hotter? What could I have said? There'll be no fans.
No. I don't mean that particular take. I mean.
Okay, I see.
Do you know what I mean? What I mean is a different take that you might have in a few weeks might be a bit more controversial. Than that.
I could heat that up though. Consider there be no fans in stadiums until
10 years.
22. How's that? Is that better?
Well, yeah, slightly. It's going slightly up the scale. Not to rip off another YouTube show, but yeah, enjoyed it. Thanks for participating in Kieron's very first hot take.
My pleasure.
All right, so let's bring to an end the first half. If you're happy with that.
I'm happy with that.
Cool. Thanks for everybody for listening to the first half. Give us your feedback on the new design, the new graphic packages we've managed to put on this podcast so far. I hope you've enjoyed them. And please tune in for part 2, where you'll get all of this. Welcome back to the second part of episode 5 of season 3 of the Game of Two Halves podcast. In this half, we will be discussing Manchester United and back-to-back defeats that they've suffered at the hands of Arsenal, and then on the road in the Champions League to Istanbul Başakşehir. I think that's the correct pronunciation.
I was wondering you were going to say that then.
I braved it. But yes, Istanbul.
Rafael FC.
Rafael and Dembaba FC. It's Premier League all-time All-Star 11, isn't it? When you think about it.
As well, wasn't there?
Yeah, we'll get to that. So 2 defeats on the trot, not great. But we'll start with the Arsenal defeat from Sunday. 1-0, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang penalty, downed United at Old Trafford. We've not talked since then, so let's just quickly give us your thoughts on what was a very disappointing day.
I'm actually going to cede the floor to Sean. I think that often when United play badly, you probably put it better than I do. I think I tried to spin it a little bit too much, maybe. I think the fans deserve to hear the truth this time.
Okay. So we've heard your sort of watered down version of events in the past. Is that what you're saying?
I want to see United do well, and I do mental gymnastics to see it going in the right direction. I think you'll be a bit more brutally honest about the last 2 games.
Okay.
And I think it's fair.
Okay. First things first, I was more annoyed after the Chelsea performance than I was the Arsenal performance, weirdly. even though we got a point from that game and we lost to Arsenal. Could have been the exact same game, really. If that penalty hadn't have been conceded, it would have probably ended 0-0. But I was more disappointed with the Chelsea game because I felt Chelsea were there for the taking, as I mentioned last week. With this performance, Arsenal set up really well. Arteta had his game plan, set Arsenal up really well. They countered our diamond in midfield. It became non-existent. We were completely overrun in the first half. Arsenal could have had 3 or 4. It was a blessing we went in at 0-0. The thing that frustrated me with United, and it was the same last night in the Champions League, the lack of intensity and the fact that it peaks and troughs from week to week. You don't know what you're going to get right now. The 5-0 against Leipzig, as Solskjaer likes to say.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Doesn't he? He loves an accent. The 5-0 against Leipzig, they were at it. They were really, intense and aggressive during that game. Chalk and cheese compared to the Chelsea and the Istanbul performances. They look lethargic. The passing's slow. There's no zip to it. It just looks like there's no desire. Fred, I pick on Fred a little bit, but we saw the two sides of Fred in the Leipzig game and the Arsenal game. I text you after post Leipzig that he was arguably the best player on the pitch. Even, in spite of Rashford's hat-trick, Fred had a great night. I thought he was intercepting all over the place. His passing was pretty sharp. But in the Arsenal game, my word, he was complete polar opposite. Couldn't play a pass. He got booked early on. It looked like he might even get sent off. He committed a couple of, risky fouls after that. Hooked at half-time. I think Matic came on. You can't have that in a United team. You need a level of consistency. And McTominay can't play on the right side of a diamond. I think that's pretty clear. He kept coming back into Fred's position. There was no discipline in that diamond. We were too heavy on that left-hand side. McTominay kept pulling into the middle, as I say. And it was just a flat, disappointing performance all round. We never looked like equalising. We never looked like really creating a chance. Didn't trouble the keeper hardly, other than when Van der Beek came on. Why Van der Beek is still not getting... I know he's hooked off at 60 minutes last night in the Istanbul game. Why he's not playing 90 minutes, I'm not sure. It's a mess at the minute. And in all honesty, I've sort of been Team Ollie all along, and I still am, back into the hill, but I'm getting worried for him now. I think the vultures are beginning to sort of leave the nest and start to circle a little bit. I know this is a bit of a monologue, but there's chat today about Maurizio Pochettino being lined up to replace Ole Gunnar Solskjaer now. Credit to the Manchester Evening News for that scoop, if it turns out to be true. And the Wolves are very slowly approaching the door for me for Solskjaer. The signs were there in the summer. We talked about it on the first podcast of the series when the board didn't back him in the transfer market. It's the same pattern that we've seen the last 2-3 managers. And when, and inevitably it is happening now, that the team are starting to stutter and the results are starting to drop off, the first casualty is always the manager. That's the nature of football. And unfortunately, it looks like that pattern's going to come true again, and Solskjaer is going to face the chop sooner rather than later. So that's where we are. That's my overall summary of the situation at present. The Istanbul game last night, just to quickly go over it. Again, great start in the Champions League, great wins against PSG, great win against Leipzig at home, handed back with an inexplicable defeat on the road to Champions League new boys, Istanbul Başakşehir. It's just not acceptable. The 2 goals we conceded, you'll have seen it. It's schoolboy stuff. It's absolutely pathetic defending. There's no need to even analyse it. It's pathetic. That's the only word I can describe it as. And we never looked like equalising. I think we had one shot on target after we pulled it back to 2-1, which was from a direct free kick from Fernandes. We never looked like creating anything. Yep, you've got to credit them for sitting deep and defending well and compactly and X, Y, and Z. But this is Manchester United. We've spent the best part of £1 billion since 2013, and we can't break down a team that's relatively unheard of. I think Martin Skrtel or Demba Ba was older than the team itself, 35 years of age, and we can't break a team down and get even a shot on target from open play in a whole half of football. It's disastrous. No intensity in the team again, no aggression, no zip with the passing. It was all too slow, and it was all too sideways. Sideways FC have called us in private, and I'm going to call it them in public now. They pass from side to side without ever advancing. They dilly-dally on crossing. They don't get it in quick enough. There's not enough movement up front. How can you expect to beat a team any team in Europe playing slowly. Just doesn't happen these days. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, no, it was bad. See you next week.
Thanks for no, come on. You need to give me something.
Agree with everything you say, but obviously, I could take it two directions. I'm going to try my best to not be sunshine.
I think that was my hot take. If we're gonna go down that road.
Yeah. I don't know where to start. I mean, I suppose we talked about Chelsea game last week, didn't we? So you should probably start with the Arsenal game.
Yeah.
Take on board everything you say. Weren't good enough. Like you say, Arteta came with a plan, executed it to perfection. I mean, again, I'm not to get. I don't know if you see the post-game coverage and Keane with Cahill.
I did.
I did actually. It was one of the times where I thought Keane was sort of playing up for the cameras, but he was actually right. I do think people, and this is me who in our pre-season podcast said Arsenal finished fourth, but
looking better than I thought it would, that prediction.
Yeah, I try to remember where I put United before I get too giddy about it, but I think so too. But I think Keane was right to say that was more about United not turning up than Arsenal. They executed the game plan perfectly, but I mean, we gave it to them. The penalty that we gave away was, I always say I'm Pogba's biggest fan, but I mean, it's just an excuse. But I want to make excuses for him. COVID, he's not at the pre-season. He played a lot of games at the end of last year, coming off an injury. I want to make all those excuses, but I mean, it was just basic. I don't know what happened. I don't know why he's gone for the challenge there. He's given away a few penalties for United as well. He shouldn't be in our box ever. And
well, if we are going to sort of start a segment for me, I'm not pushing it, but start of the day, which I've got lined up, is on Paul Pogba. This is courtesy of Daniel Harris. A good journalist. Good journalist, good writer, United writer. And he says in United's last 8 league games, Paul Pogba started 6, contributed no goals and no assists, but conceded 3 penalties, all scored, and 1 has been narrowly reprieved by VAR after the ref gave one against him at Brighton. So it could have been 4 penalties in 6 starts that he's conceded.
Okay, well, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that, but
glad I put in my little
yeah.
What do you think now?
Yeah. What do you make of that? I mean, do you read too much into that, or I say he shouldn't be near our box? I think that's pretty much cast in stone.
Yeah, no. So I would just repeat what I said. To be honest, I do think there is an element that he's not fit. I think it's also fair to say that the arrival of Bruno when Pogba was injured really meant that we had to change the midfield. And we did find a balance last year with Bruno playing 10 and Pogba and Matic holding in the middle. And we've talked about, there's pros and cons to having Paul Pogba in the, I think we wouldn't call it an 8. Well, you would actually call it an 8 because he joins the attacks.
Yeah.
But in the 2 with Matic, there's pros and cons. The cons are there are going to be times where he gets caught out the ball in your own half. There's going to be times where he's too deep and you want him further into the attack. He's not got, I always say it again, I'm obsessed with him, but he's not a defender. He doesn't think like that. It's just, you can't, I think he's beyond coaching. I just don't think he's wired that way. He doesn't want to run back. And again, we can have a debate about whether there's room for a player that'll do that in the modern game, but there's room for him in Manchester United because when he plays well, it doesn't matter. But he's not playing well at the minute. So should he be playing as many minutes as he is now, given I don't think he's very fit? Probably not. And should he be in a position where he's having to defend in our own box? Probably not. So I think of him as a forward. I've always said it.
Yeah, 100%.
The sign of Bruno meant he had to move back just for the balance of our team, at the time.
Is it a case that we are just trying to cram a round peg into a square hole or a square peg into a round hole?
It looks
in terms of, I'm not talking Paul Pogba individually, but yeah, we're trying to play him as both a defensive and an attacking midfielder. But we've got a sort of and I say this in very heavily inverted commas, an embarrassment of riches at the attacking midfielder position now. Pogba, Van der Beek, Bruno Fernandes.
We have.
Yeah, we have. So is it a case that I think we have to play Fernandes every week, but one of Van der Beek and Pogba plays instead of trying to fit 3 of the 4 into the same team?
Yeah, I think it is. But then, to be fair to Solskjaer, Fernandes, Van der Beek, and Pogba haven't played that much together because I do think.
No, but by that I mean playing Van der Beek for an hour, putting Pogba on for the last half an hour.
Yeah.
Van der Beek's done nothing but train for 2 months.
Yeah.
He's looked sharp in the games he has played. He ran the second most distance on the pitch in the Leipzig game and came off after 70 minutes. So he's not unfit. There's no way he's unfit. So
I can't emphasise enough. I'm not worried about whether Solskjaer likes Van der Beek or whether he wants to.
No, it doesn't worry me. But
I know you're not saying that, but there is every time the sheet comes out, everyone's saying where's Van der Beek? Ollie didn't want him or something along those lines. I don't think.
Why do you not want him? He's right. a great attacking midfielder. One of the up there in the top tier of Europe.
Yeah,
past 2 seasons.
He's done a really good job at a very young age at Ajax.
Yeah.
In the last stage of the Champions League, he's
very nearly got him to the final, barring that miracle from Spurs.
Imagine maybe they'd have beaten him, but
well,
again, I'm not worried about that. I wonder whether there's something else to the reasons he's not playing him. I can't even begin to imagine what they are. Maybe it's because he feels he knows what he's got with Van der Beek and he's trying to find out what he's got in this team. Maybe I think the reality is, though, if I'm being completely honest, he's just trying to find the balance between our players. And at the moment, we don't look very close to finding it. As you say, we're inconsistent. There are games we play really well. There are games we play awfully. I've taken issue with a lot of the selections over the last few weeks, but I have to be honest. I think what I've learned over the last year or so with Solskjaer is that I think, and I probably, it's probably taught me this wider about, to a wider extent about football in general, is maybe it is time that all of us who aren't involved and close to the game stop questioning every single decision with a selection, because there's obviously good reasons that they've gone with the team they've gone with. And I know you don't. I'm preaching to the choir here.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm sort of like telling myself this because I think sometimes it's so easy to go, why is he not doing this or why is he not doing that? The issue Solskjaer's got now that he didn't have at the start of last year and he didn't have in the restart is that he's got a good squad now. He's got a lot of... Yeah,
and all of a sudden that's a problem. We've been crying out for depth and all of a sudden he's got it and it's almost an unwanted burden, isn't it? It's what's the term? We always say it's not a bad dilemma to have, but it almost is now, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I think potentially that it's definitely on the cards that Solskjaer could find an 11 which gets in 2 of the 3 midfielders we've talked about.
Yeah.
And rotate that. I think that, I thought before the season that was certainly possible. And I have to think, Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did too when they made the decision to sign Van der Beek. So, again, I have to believe that there's a plan to incorporate 2 of the 3 at the very least. But I think just because where we are now, we need results, maybe it is time to sort of revert to what we had at the end of last season.
That was going to be my next point. Why do you think we're not seeing that set up so far?
I don't think Matic was ready for the start of the season, just because he's only played the last 3 games. I think the first few weeks we didn't see him. So I think
he played against Brighton. I think.
Yeah, you did.
But I know what you're saying. He's been in and out.
He was week in, week out in that run, barring the cup games where it was McTominay and Fred. He allows us to, he did last year in that run. He allowed us to play Pogba there. He can't play 3 games a week, which is what the requirement is now. Playing Premier League, Champions League, Premier League. The cups haven't really properly come into it yet. So when they do, that's going to ask more questions of our squad then. So I think he's trying to keep Matic fresh for the season. And I think he's got to find another way around it, because against the top 15 teams, I don't think he can play, say, McTominay or Fred next to Pogba and then Bruno advanced. I don't think that's an option.
No, maybe not. I'd like to see it given a go at this stage.
The thing is, I actually think this is probably where the beef of our second half will be, to be honest, because this is the one thing I think we disagree on. I love Fred for his enthusiasm, and I think he's definitely a very good squad player for us. Probably not worth £52 million, but he's a good squad player. I adore Scott McTominay. I think he's exactly what we want. Homegrown, never going to complain if he's on the bench, team player, works hard, demands with the rest of the team. He's great. But neither of them are good enough on the ball to support Pogba bringing the ball out into the midfield. And I say Pogba, and you could change Pogba for Van der Beek or Fernandes for me there.
So by playing them both together, it chokes the life out of the attacking side of the team.
Yeah.
Yes. Right.
I just want to, the one last point I want to make about Fred and McTominay is not only they're not good enough on the ball to help bring the ball out into the midfield and then help build attacks, they're also on their own, without the other, not good enough off the ball. And I say that as someone who's seen them both play excellently in big games, and we've won big games in both in the team.
Yeah.
The strategy with them two, I think Gary Neville reads this wrong, Shock. But when they both play together, what happens is we press high, and then the attacks come, or the counter attacks come, and what happens is the nearest one of the two goes to the man with the ball, or the nearest one to the ball goes to the ball. The other one follows the runner, and if the guy doesn't win the tackle, then he comes across, and then it gives the defender a chance to shuttle across and cover the other attacking runner. They shut down attacks before they can begin, and if they do that because they're willing to run for 90 minutes hard off the ball and got the energy to do it. Matic hasn't got the athleticism or the energy to do it anymore. Pogba will never be that guy ever. Van der Beek, I think, would, but I don't think he's physical enough. And Bruno, obviously, you don't want him doing it because you want him to keep his energy further up the pitch. So there's a role for them, but they have to play in a two because I see them doing that job of gives us a chance to press out the pitch, but then when the other team win the ball, they shut down the attacks really quick and recycle the possession. We can only do that against certain games. If we play against any team in the bottom 10, we can't live in fear that they're going to counter attack us. So you can't then play for McTominay because then the disadvantage is that when the other teams then set up on a low block, they're not good enough on the ball to help unlock the defence.
And that's the trouble. So do you sort of have to rely on your fullbacks to pull you out of trouble? If, for example, you're playing against a low block and they're playing the counter-attack, you leave Wan-Bissaka on the halfway line. I know he's going to be supporting the attack, but if you're playing one of the fullback, whichever the plays down one side, the other one has to tuck in and sort of play the halfway line and play the last line of defence to sweep across and cut the counter-attacking striker off. I
mean, it's not even a question, really, is it? We do.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's a must. The modern game, your fullbacks attack, right?
Well, and to be honest, Kieron, this is where we fall down at centre back. Maguire's a complete truck. He can barely run. Lindelof's not much quicker. Bailly's injured all the time. Tuanzebe's quick, but he isn't playing in the league. I mean, watching Maguire and Matic play centre back at the end of the game last night I've never seen anything like it. I mean, they weren't troubled, fortunately, but it's a good job because I've seen cruise ships turn around quicker than those two. And that's the trouble. We can't leave one of them to on the halfway line because they will get burnt off on the counter-attack.
Okay, so you switched it up real quick there when you were talking about the centre backs.
I did, yeah.
No. I see where you're coming from because obviously I completely agree with you that you need the width that you get from the fullbacks now. They overlap.
You do, yeah.
I think that this is probably why Oli wanted to bring in Jadon Sancho is because had he got Sancho and had Telles not got COVID and we'd got him earlier in the window, I think our attack outlet down the left would have been Telles and we'd have seen him really maraud on the left. And I think that Wan-Bissaka would have held the line a little bit. You would have still wanted him to go forward, but he would have been,
Well, you'd sacrifice Wan-Bissaka as an attacking threat, wouldn't you? Because he isn't really an attacking threat anyway. No, he's just a number.
No, and if we'd have got Sancho, there would have been enough there that he would have been able to operate on the right without really having to rely on Wan-Bissaka's overlapping runs. And I think it naturally would have dragged out, say, Martial or someone else, and there would have been interchange in there. The damage we wouldn't have been as desperate. Whereas as it stands, we have to ask Wan-Bissaka to attack down the right, because I love Mason Greenwood, but he's not a right winger. He's
again, it's forward. Classic United putting a centre forward on a wing because we don't have anybody there.
I don't mind him playing in that wide position, Greenwood, I have to say.
But I don't want to waste him. I don't want to waste him because he's, in my opinion, a generational talent that we've got coming through. He's the best finisher I've seen for 10 years. He needs to play down the middle, and it needs to be sooner rather than later for me.
Yeah, the thing for me on the Greenwood's and everything you just said, but he's not a creative player.
No.
So when we're on the right and the defence is set in front of him, he can do the step overs and get a shot on goal if it's 1-on-1.
Yeah.
But he has to get 1-on-1. And when a team in a low block, it's pointless.
When are you going to be 1-on-1? Yeah, exactly.
So that's the issue we've got, is we haven't got anything out wide. And I think that's probably why he's resorted to playing Pogba on the left now. But he's clearly not fit.
United are the only team to sign 2 right wingers and still be short at right wing.
Who are the right wingers?
Diallo and Pellistri.
Right, sorry, okay, yeah.
I know we've not seen one and the other's not playing, but we've signed 2 right wings in the window and we're still short. It's mad.
Yeah. The thing that's mad about it, especially, is that, let's just fantasize for a second. Let's just say these 2 players develop into really good players. We'll then have 2 really good right wingers. We'll definitely be short on the left.
I know.
Go short on the left somehow. So it's what we do.
Couple of minutes left then, Kieron, and we said we'd try and stick to an hour this week. I'll let you pick the last sort of estuary we go down here, or tributary we go down, whichever avenue, let's say. So, do you want to talk leadership on the pitch, or do you want to talk Solskjaer and Pochettino?
I don't want to pick. You pick.
Let's talk leadership. We'll keep the Solskjaer-Pochettino conversation in the can. Hopefully, we won't ever have to bring it back out. But let's talk leadership on the pitch. So, there's been a lot of chat in the media, and that Harry Maguire doesn't really lead the team as well as he should as club captain, and they're not a very vocal team, United, on the pitch. Scott McTominay came on at half-time in last night's Champions League game and supposedly sort of said more in a minute than the rest of the team had in the whole of the first half. So where do you stand on that? Do United need a vocal leader on the pitch, somebody to sort of carry them a little bit?
I don't think we're particularly... We've got more leaders than we've had since Ferguson in our squad now, I think.
Why is nobody organising the back line and telling somebody to stand on the halfway line with Demba Ba yesterday? What do you put that down to?
Incompetence. I don't think it's a lack of leadership. I think that's incompetence. I don't think if Maguire spots that, he's not shouting and telling someone they should be there.
I mean, why is everybody forward? It's baffling.
Yeah, it's incompetent. I think, the reason we're where we are, we've got a lot of very good players. We've got a good squad now, but we've still got our flaws in the team, and there's no balance to the 11 right now. But I think that's where we are. I think the first thing people say when teams start losing is there's no leaders, and I think often that is said about, how can I put it without sounding like the people I hate? Right. Who's Man City's leader?
Right now, it's difficult to say, isn't it? In the past, it's been company, hasn't it? Yeah. Beyond that, look, I mean, De Bruyne obviously does good work on the pitch, but
we've got a lot of players that do a lot of good work. Running doesn't make you a good leader. And again,
this is why I wanted to watch the games with the crowd noise off.
Yeah,
this is part of it.
De Bruyne, if you put
Kyle Walker, I'd actually say Kyle Walker's a decent organizer.
Fair. If you put De Bruyne in our team, we'd be a better football team. I don't think he would fill a leadership void.
I don't know. I think he probably does more than people appreciate him for, to be honest.
I often think that what people look for in when they find leaders, there are exceptions, but I often think when you watch Sky or you're on the back page of the Sun or wherever you go, leaders are very often white, British, or English, more specifically.
Roy Keane, Steven Gerrard.
Yeah, players, industrial players.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Do a lot of running.
Gerrard, they do that, then they've got the goal in them. That's often what your leaders look like in this country.
Which is why McTominay.
That's the definition of a leader.
Which is why people mention him, Scott McTominay.
That's
yeah, and I agree with that. And it's a bit of a cliche and what have you. But at the same time, seeing United play so slowly and so lethargically like that, it almost does need somebody to tell them, come on, get your act together, pick it up. And I don't see anybody doing that.
I have seen that. I'll be honest, I haven't seen it as much in the last few games, but there were definitely times where after we'd signed Bruno, and I thought, Christ, he's actually like telling
Fernandes. I'd have given him the armband, to be perfectly honest. I think he demonstrates far more passion and desire than Maguire does.
I think, maybe. No, I stand by it. Often, I'll stand by the point I made that often in this country, people like the leaders to be English workhorses, white. But the other thing, and the other typical thing, is they always go for players that shout and do all that, and it's all passion. And I say passion, PAS.
Yeah, H.
It's all about that. There's more than. As we always said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There's loads of different ways that players lead. And again, I never see any. City's team are well disciplined, but they haven't got. They had company, but they haven't got.
All right. So is that because Guardiola's on the touchline 90 minutes of the game, barking orders? Solskjaer's sat in the dugout. You don't really often see him in the technical area.
He only comes out. The only time he walks down is if we just conceded a goal, and he walks down. He's got this face on him. He's like, I'm looking for that sort of thing. I think it's for the cameras, to be honest.
And I saw him last night actually. Mao would pass it quicker. I don't know if you spotted that yourself, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer, isn't it?
I just look at this squad and I think, right, Maguire. I don't love him, but I do think he's got some leadership qualities. I don't think he's the best centre back, and he's definitely not quick. But I don't think we've definitely improved last year. That there was a lot more organisation about that defence than we'd seen for a long time.
The numbers don't lie, do they? The numbers don't lie.
Bruno is a leader. I see that in him, definitely, 100%. You talk about McTominay. I do think McTominay can be that guy. The thing about McTominay. If you follow United as a fan, he seems like the kind of guy that gets on with everyone. And I say that as a person that when the Manchester United account on YouTube bangs something out, he just comes across like a really good lad. And you can tell he works hard. He was walking off the pitch the other day. He looked absolutely furious. And it's little things like that. And I am here subscribing to this view that all leaders wear it all on their sleeve and that a little bit. But I do think he's got it in him.
It's leading by example more than anything else, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but again, the thing with this team, I don't think it is. I just think it's the first thing anyone does is they go when a team starts losing, they go, "Where's the leadership? Where are your leaders?" And what they usually mean by that is, "Where's the guy going and putting in a tackle?" Usually,
but it does help.
Yeah, but it's also circumstantial a tackle sometimes because it's.
Paul Pogba's doing that. To be fair, he's putting a few tackles in.
Yeah, exactly. He tries, and then we're up. No, I'm joking. But no, sometimes it is about going and winning these tackles. But I think that the game has to be right for tackles to come in.
Well, and the crowd has to be in. For me.
Well, yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you've got games where there's opportunities to win tackles because players are holding on to the ball and stuff like that. But when you're playing against a team in a low block, they're not holding the ball long enough for you to get near them.
No,
they're passing it around very quickly. You can't make the tackle, so you're not getting this chance to win a tackle. And then for Roy Keane to go, he's a leader. So I just think that there's more to it. I think it's too simplistic to just go, oh, they've got no leaders. Because if we start winning again, like we did at the end of last year, you then got to go, oh, we've got loads of leaders.
Yeah, I know, and it is an easy argument to fall back on. I do hear you, but it's an interesting one because at the moment it does look like United are lacking a little bit vocally and attitude wise more than anything else. And I see that in terms of the work rate, the effort, the intensity, and the aggression that they've shown in the last few games.
I agree. The intensity is horrifically low. I just think, again, my conclusion is that, or my presumption is that it's a fitness thing. I just think it has to be. I just think it has to be. They look knackered. They were willing last year to run a lot. I don't believe that they now get to the Champions League and then it's it's another long season. I think
that's not going to get better then, is it? If they're knackered now, then they're just going to be playing game.
It is my worry. It's either that. Yeah, it is a worry.
How do you see?
There's no real breaks.
No. Let's get knocked out of the Champions League early.
No, it's not, because we'll end up in the Europa League.
Well, yeah, exactly. So just to round off that segment, how do you see Everton United panning out Saturday dinner time?
I do fear for Ollie, but with that said, every time we go into these games saying that,
yeah,
he pulls something off. But again, Everton are going to be without Coleman again. I think Digne will be back. I think his ban was reduced. Yeah. Whether James Rodriguez will be fit, I think Richarlison's out.
I think he's still out, yeah.
So they're depleted to an extent. It's going to be a tough game, though. They set up well. Ancelotti's no more because we keep saying.
Jordan Pickford will be back, though, so that's good news.
I think they'll stick with the other guy, won't they?
No, he said it's only one game, I think.
Oh,
he said Pickford's coming right back. Unless I've heard it wrong, but I don't think so.
No, I mean, I didn't know anything, so I'll take your word for it. But yeah, he gives us a chance then, let's put it that way. Yeah. We're going to have shots on goal. Well, we might not actually with Pickford.
Well, yeah, back pass might have a chance.
Yeah, or just, a cross.
Yeah.
Throw into the net, maybe.
So after all that, we are still quietly optimistic, I think.
Yeah, I'll be honest.
There's a long way to go. I'm not writing us off.
I'll say this. My other hot take, which I wasn't brave enough to do for the thing you're inevitably going to snip it into a nice little video for YouTube, is United are still going to finish in the top three. But I'm not really I don't really want to say that because I do think I'll look stupid at the end of the year. But I will say this. There's definitely a path for that still. If we've got a good run after the Everton game.
Look, we've had a tough start. Let's not overlook that. Spurs, Arsenal, Chelsea, Everton, first 7 games. Yeah. It's not straightforward.
No, and if we can find a balance, because I do think it will come with you'll swap one player in or out, and I think it'll all seem to look a bit more. The same way it did when Pogba came back last year, and we went with that particular formation, and it worked. He stumbled across it, and it worked. I think eventually something will stick. We have got a good squad. We've got a lot of players that we've got reason to believe will improve. Pogba being one of them. Cavani, we should hopefully see maybe come in to the season a bit more and maybe have a bit more of an impact and give us an option off the bench. Rashford seems to always be either really fit or not fit at all, but we should have him and Martial for the whole season rather than 80% of it this year, you would hope. Mm-hmm. Bruno's going to be here all year, and whilst the defence have looked poor, I've said it before, they do start, not seasons, but they came back from that restart looking really bad last year, and then they went on a really good run at one point. So there's reasons to think that we can definitely improve. It's just, it feels a long way off right now.
And I think if we win our game in hand, I don't know if this is right now, but I think we're still only about 6 points behind. So
yeah.
The league is still very, very congested, isn't it? Nobody's making a run for it or anything like that. So it's not a completely disastrous start that people are making it out to be. I think give it 5 games time, the league will start to even out a little bit, and we'll be able to sort of make some solid predictions as to where we're all going to finish.
Yeah. 100% agree.
Good. Glad to hear it. Kieron, thank you very much for your contributions. Thanks for your hot takes. Appreciated it.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
See you next week. Thank you very much for watching and listening to this podcast. If you're watching the YouTube version, we are available on iTunes and Spotify and all good podcast providers. If you're listening to the podcast version, we are available on YouTube, so check us out on there. But thanks for all your comments, your likes, your shares. It's greatly appreciated. And we'll be back next week for episode 6 of season 3 of the Game for Two Halves podcast.